What's going on, sports fans? It's Stuart V with Venom Sports. And we're just going to talk about, just for a few minutes, the reason why Auburn should have bought Gus out. They're not going to do it. I got some breaking news, actually, after I finished the content for this particular show, that Gus is working out a deal with Auburn University to where he will remain as the head coach. Now, as far as his assistants goes, I think that's going to be the biggest meat of this particular story, how it unfolds. But, Auburn has had a pretty much a love-hate relationship with Gus. And by the way, big shout out to Knucklehead Sports, man. A sports page that I helped moderate. Big shout out to Eric Terrell, Andy Levitt, and Richard Glaze. Man, I can name S. Jarrell Brown, Keith Edwards, all those guys on Knucklehead Sports, Ruby Calhoun, man. Y'all, man, I appreciate everything that every one of y'all do to keep that thing entertaining. If I left you out, my bad. You know what I'm saying? But either way, Auburn is in a tough spot, because when you look at your head coach and some of the decisions that he makes some really money defining decisions. He makes some recruiting decisions that potential players coming to Auburn, they have to make based on the climate of the program. And you have to think, okay, you have to weigh this thing out. Okay, we got $32 million, but what is it that we stand to lose in the long haul if we hold on to this guy, because we don't want to pay the $32 million buyout? Or as an athletic director, do we see some kind of mitigating circumstance as to how this guy can stay? But when I look at Gus Malzahn's history up to this point, and you talk about a history of just shooting yourself in the foot, there are 5 things that I come up with that would have justified a buyout, for Gus. First of all, Gus is just unwilling to adjust. How many times have we seen either he continues doing what doesn't work or he gets away from what does work? Second half adjustments have been horrible for Gus Malzahn. The statistics, I could go and give you stat after stat about how the offense, a lot of times, especially in the big games, has been anemic in the second half. Just unwilling to adjust, unwilling to continue to do what works. All right, number 2, this is a big one for me because, you talk about player development. During his tenure at Auburn, he's only had 2 first-round picks in the NFL. Now, his partners over at Alabama have had 12 first-round picks. Also, just total drafted players, only 20 players from Auburn since Gus Malzahn has been there. And since Gus has been there at Auburn, Alabama has 49 total actual draft picks. And when I looked at the list, I'm like, damn, man, they had like 5 first-round picks in 1 year. So incredible player development going on at Alabama, not so much at Auburn. And to slash that, the fans, by and large, just don't like him. Can you all imagine going to work every day and the people just don't like you? I know you don't go to work just for people to like you, but, I mean, hell, you want to have at least some people who are on your side. But Gus, he's always just one. I'll even look at the threads on social media. Anything that goes wrong at Auburn, I'm talking about, hell, if the basketball team loses, they blaming Gus. When in doubt, blame Gus. One thing, number 3, one of the things that I really have a problem with Gus is he just lacks urgency. He doesn't understand at times the culture of SEC football. After losing games like LSU and Georgia and Alabama, his casual nature in losing those games have been absolutely irritating for the fan base. We had our chances. Like, he doesn't understand, like, this fan base is to the point where, hey, you beat LSU, Georgia, and Alabama, and we'll be fine. We want to win those games. We want to be, and if we do lose, we want to be competitive in those games. And if we do lose the game, we don't want it to be because of some self-inflicting wounds. And that's what it has been. For Gus Malzahn, leading to number 4, just a lackluster record in the SEC bowl games and rival games. Okay, so here's the story with this. Gus Malzahn is 28-20 in the SEC. Now, the big stat with that, although he has a winning record in the SEC, 14 of those wins came in 2 seasons. The season where, Auburn went to the national championship, Then last year when Auburn went 10-4, they were 7-1 and won the SEC West both years in 2013, winning the SEC championship and winding up in the national championship, losing to Florida State in the last few seconds, which is still pissing off a lot of the Auburn fans to this point. 3 seconds away, right? We were almost there. Now, here's the deal. Another thing, when you look at the bowl games with Gus, when you look at the rival game records with Gus, 2-5 against Alabama, 2-5 against Georgia, 2-5 against LSU. You know, that's something that's irritating this fan base. This fan base is based on pride. You know, this fan base wants to win the rival games. You know you're not going to win your rival games every year, but this Auburn is the kind of program that just does not want to be dominated by their rivals, and by and large, statistically, they have over the last 7 years. And another staggering thing is his casual approach to the bowl game. Only bowl game that Gus Malzahn has won was the Birmingham Bowl against Memphis back in 2016. And probably his worst bowl loss was the loss to UCF. Now, this is a perceptual game for Auburn. This is one of those games where, you know, UCF was trying to prove that they belong in the college football playoff. And what better team to match them up with? The hottest team in college football, beating the 2 number 1 teams in the country. Although they lost in the SEC championship, hey, man, it's hard to beat, you know, a top-tier SEC team twice, especially within a month span. All right? So this game was the game that the nation needed Auburn to win this game so we could shut UCF the hell up, right? But what happens? Gus gets dominated. Even with the chance to the chance to win down the stretch, Auburn gets absolutely dominated. I think at that point, it was a certain point in the game where it was a 2-score football game where Auburn eventually lost because of an errant pass by Jarrett Stidham. He just threw it up for grabs, interception, game over, right? 1-4 in bowl games. Those are stats that are just not acceptable. And number 5, which has proven to be, you know, kind of non-essential at this point since there are deals on the table for Auburn and Gus Malzahn. You know, they kind of amending his contract to where it won't cost as much next year to buy him out if he does decide to go 7-5 again, which I'm hoping. This is what I'm hoping. This is what a lot of the Auburn fan base is hoping, is that Gus Malzahn is smart enough. He's actually being given chance after chance to right this ship. You know, earlier today, before all these other developments came about, I thought Auburn was about ready to pull the trigger because I think the biggest thought was, well, who are we going to get to replace Gus Malzahn? You know, who's out there? Who's out there that's not already on a team? Who's out there that, you know, although they are, who's ambitious enough and who's ready enough to come to Auburn and have to deal with the beast of facing Alabama, LSU, Georgia every season, the pressure every season, the recruiting pressures every season. And a name that surfaces is Bob Stoops. So they probably like, oh, hell yeah, we could potentially pick up Bob Stoops, who, you know, has some experience, who had great success at Oklahoma, and we can bring that to give us some type of competitive edge in the recruiting battles and in the coaching battles with Nick Saban and you know, some of the other Jimbo Fisher, some of the other coaches in the SEC, Kirby Smart, all of those guys that you're competing with on the recruiting trail. But since this deal is on the table, I mean, it's kind of undisclosed at this point. Apparently, Gus Malzahn has accepted it and will probably have to make some huge adjustments to his staff in order to solidify his retention at Auburn. Bob Stoops is probably all but off the table at this point. So we're going to see what happens with Gus Malzahn and how he adjusts and make Auburn to where they're consistently competitive. Not the great season, and then you follow that thing up with 7-5, 8-4 seasons and losing your bowl game. Once again, my name is Stuart V for Venom Sports. Big shout out to Knucklehead Sports and Auburn Armchair Quarterbacks on Facebook. You all take it easy. Have a good day. Oh, by the way, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Vernon Speaks. Take care.